Welcome, episode 3, Stronger Together, NORTHFIT podcast. I think we're kind of stuck with that name, seem happy enough. Today is again digging more into us, I suppose, individuals and coaches and how we kind of, yes, work together, but no, what's all kind of led us to work together as a team here. So everything that's probably happened prior to NORTHFIT and brought us to this day. But we'll kick it off with a wee bit more about our background. So, what you kind of have been doing prior to here and your time as a coach as NORTHFIT. Was it naturally the kind of path that you seen yourself going on, or did it kind of just happen based on various things changing in life, that kind of thinking? But we'll go with Reece. We'll kick it off. What's led you to today, in the fitness industry?
Well, I've wanted to be a PT from I was about 13. I used to bring friends to the gym. We all used to go train together, and I used to be the driving force behind a lot of it. Like, right, guys, let's go, we'll get down here, we'll do this, and sort of helping people value that sort of strength aspect of going. It wasn't just we're going, it was we're going to go and we're going to get better this time. We're going to do this a little bit more or this little bit extra. And you know what it's like, you're 16, 17, you get a bit of work and then you're like, oh, this feels like it's a little bit better than sort of sitting around in school waiting on your EMA or waiting on your stuff to come in. £60 every 2 weeks. It was getting tight.
Yeah.
So I was a floor layer for 10, 12 years. In between there, I was even doing it in the background for family and friends, doing it full time. Wooden floors, carpets, the lot. I learned it, took the time, and like, one value I like about myself is that I don't do things by half. I don't like to be okay at something.
Yeah.
I like to be constantly improving, constantly looking for something that I can get better at. And with the floor laying, that was one thing that set me apart from a lot of the people in the industry there. Like, I constantly wanted to do that little bit more. I wanted to learn how to do this better. How can I make this look better next time? What can the client get extra that I can provide? And I bring that into my coaching as well.
That's going to be my next question.
It's a customer-based industry. We have clients that come to us because they want something from us. And it's, how can I deliver that? How can I help them? What can I give them in this hour that they can take into the rest of their week and it help?
Would you see, because just you mentioned obviously having that like passion for fitness and being maybe the driver between you and a group of mates and kind of always kind of kept people going. Could you have seen it going the other way with already having a career essentially and a job in a different industry with the floor laying and stuff?
Yeah. I still get it every now and again.
I suppose what changed? What was the change?
The changing point was even when I was fitting, it became like the gym was something I might have done or I didn't have time for, and I wasn't making it. We weren't the best of eaters, so we would have ate quite a lot when we were out. We would have been waiting about on jobs. We'd had coffees, had drinks, had whatever we were sitting with.
In that
in that environment that we had, like outside. Like, so after school, I sort of started to put a bit of weight on. I was always I was chubby as a kid. Then as I sort of stretched up into a teenager, I was tall, skinny. So I wanted to go to the gym, put a bit of muscle on, build a wee bit up, and then I got that. But then there was no direction with it. There was no, this is the next thing, this is what I'm doing, and that just sort of phased out.
I think that's something though. That direction thing is something that I'm sure, again, Sean will have his own thoughts, but everyone, regardless of us sitting here as personal trainers and coaches, we've been in that position as well, where it's a bit like, we'll go to the gym, but I don't really know what I'm going for or how to get to that next step. So there is a lack of kind of direction and support in that, in that environment.
I think it's important for even as a coach, for they've sort of been in a position where you didn't know what was next, or you were sort of fat, skinny, wherever you were. I was fat personally. I was 20 just over 20 stone, and I received coaching after that. So I reached out. I went one-to-one with a guy, and he was brilliant, but it just didn't suit anymore. So I moved on. I was working with Ben Heron. Me and him worked together, and I got 8 stone. And within 6 months, I'd lost 8 stone, and say it's quite a big loss. But whenever I sort of signed up with him, I made a commitment to myself, and I just switched it off. Things right, I don't do this anymore. I do this. This is how I show up. This is what I do. And I act like a different person. I trained like I just trained hard. Every time I went in, I was looking for that 1%. I was trying to get that little bit more. If I missed a session, I was out for a run. There was no missing. It was, this is what I do. This is how I get it. And I don't miss. That it became who I was, not what I was doing. And I was putting those ticks in the calendar, saying, right, this is what I need to do. This is what happens. This is when it happens. Right, I've missed that, but I'm not missing. Yeah. So I didn't get a session. I'm going to go for a 5K tonight. You know,
yeah, it was always on plan.
There was always something, and it was a conscious choice that I made to not miss. And I was on that for about 8 to 12 months. I locked in. I got down from say 20 stone to roughly 12. Done a photo shoot, and then from there I started to build muscle. And I'd say that's probably what changed in the aspect of it gave me that little bit more leniency. I could do a little bit more. I could eat a little bit more. I could go out with friends a bit more.
It wasn't just purely about
it
restricting
wasn't this
and
fat
cutting
loss.
everything out. Yeah,
Once I'd done that fat loss phase, it was done. I was into right now. Let's get
bigger. How to get stronger.
Let's get stronger. Let's get bigger. Let's take this to the next level. And I'd say the muscle I built in there, I built about 2 to 3 stone of muscle, and that is what stopped me from getting bigger again. Like I was stronger, faster, fitter, and I didn't want to get fat again.
Yeah.
And obviously when you're coming through that sort of, you went through a weight loss phase, you're like bringing the scales down, bringing it all down. On the way back up, the first thought you see like a kilo on, you're like, I'm getting fat again.
Yeah.
And like having to like, you have like, oh no.
Yeah.
And it's panicking. And that's what kills a lot of people's gains. They're like, no, I can't, I'm getting fat. It's like,
It's a big conversation we have in here using the InBody.
Yeah.
You have that metric of like, well, of a weight loss goal, I need to get my weight down from X to Y, and then it gets down and it creeps up a wee bit, but they've maybe built half a kilo of muscle or a kilo of muscle, and it's trying to get that mind shift of like, it's okay to put that kind of weight on, not because it's
losing that emotional relationship with weight, because when it comes to that number, so many people are like, oh, I have a goal weight of 70 kilo. And then they get to 68, and then they start to come back up, as in like they've started to eat a little bit more, they're starting to train for strength, they're pushing that sort of muscle gain side of things. And then they start to freak because they're seeing the scales go the opposite way of what maybe for 6 months they've been chasing.
When that's all you're thinking has been, when the scales are going the opposite way, you don't want it.
It's that sort of, that swap over in thinking, because at the end of the day, we can all lose fat. It's not as easy for some people, but it is easy compared to building muscle.
In theory, it's not that complicated.
In theory, eat less, move more. The scales are going to go in one direction. But whenever you start to build muscle, it's not a case of, oh yeah, just go in and do this session. I just need to burn a bit of calories. Just need to do whatever I'm doing. You need to force the body to get bigger. It's not something like your body wants to be as small as possible. From an evolutionary standpoint, your body wants to be small.
Reserve energy and everything else.
It wants to have excess energy, so that's why we hold fat. But when you're trying to build muscle, you have to put yourself in the position, you have to do the reps, you have to up the weight, you have to be consciously pushing yourself harder than you did last time. And if you don't do that, it shows up. The muscle is not built. The fat starts to, or those calories become fat. Those different, the
numbers don't go by their
the numbers don't
so
move.
You see other metrics that don't go
the
the
numbers
way you want them.
don't move the way you want them to, and you want to be seeing that progress, whether your weight's coming down and your strength's coming up, or your strength's coming up and your weight's coming up. But you want it to be in line. Like I've always used like the rule of 4. Your fat loss is going to be 4 times quicker than muscle gain. Right, so when you're gaining muscle, if you're losing a kilo a week, you should be maybe gaining a kilo a month. Compared like on the way out, like it's a good way to look at it. If you're gaining any more than that, you're probably gaining excess body fat.
You're gaining excess body fat.
You're not
too quicker.
What
about yourself, Sean? No fitness industry wise, was it something you seen yourself like always doing, a bit like Reece? He says where he didn't necessarily see himself being a personal trainer when he was 15 or whatever, but there was something there that was kind of guiding him back to the fitness industry.
Not really. When I was younger, I never thought, oh, I'm going to be a coach or personal trainer. I actually wanted to be a teacher. So I'm a teacher now, but in a different aspect. Typical when I started training, it was 16, 17, just going to the gym, messed about, want to get bigger arms, fill the t-shirts a bit out more. That was it. And then during lockdown, everything closed. I was sitting up, eating crap, playing PlayStation all hours of the day, gaining weight. And then when everything started opening up again, there was something in me. I don't know what it was. I remember sitting one day. I was in town. Actually, I remember doing it. I was like, I'm gonna go to this gym up in. It was in the Falls Road. I was like, I'm just gonna go and get a membership and go from there. And from there on, it just went step by step. It's just led me where I am today.
How long goes up?
2020.
2020.
So 5 years consistently.
4 to 5 years.
Been training maybe 7, 8 years. The
totally.
first 3 was on and off,
Yep.
messing about, and then the
I think that those
2020s.
first couple of years of anyone's training is a bit of that. It's like, you could be 15 or 16 with your mates, or you could be 30, but it's your first couple of years of
Yeah.
training, or maybe you've never been in a
Just
gym.
dabbling and everything, messing about, trying things, and just going from there.
How did you find that, like, earlier, when you were like teenager, going to train? Was there that support, that guidance, or was it you just going in and kind of winging
I
it?
didn't really tell anyone I was going. I used to go really late, and I used to walk. There used to be a pure gym beside my house, and I used to go down there at like 11 o'clock at night. When it was quiet, no one was there, and I thought, I'll try this.
Why was that? Why was the...
I don't know. I just was like, I don't really want people seeing me training. Just probably a mistake on my end, trying to do things that's silly in the gym, and no one was there to help me. So
in hindsight, you can look back and go, I probably should have went to the... 'cause
Yeah.
I remember, I first kind of properly started training, I say probably when I was a teenager, it was the arena in Yorkgate. And that was probably a good learning curve, because it was a popular enough gym at the time. It was
Yeah.
probably the only real... There was no pure gyms or anything there, so it was like city centre wise, it was
probably
kinda
the
in
only
outskirts of it.
instead.
There wasn't really too many other places, apart from just stinking like backstreet gyms or whatever, like boxing clubs you would have got, maybe they had a gym in it. But you were just in a place where there was loads of people who were bigger and stronger than you and a lot older.
Yeah.
They didn't offer you huge amounts of support or anything. They weren't running about helping you, like, but there was people there who were like, oh, fuck, look what they're doing, or look what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you just try to mimic
Gives you
the scene,
an
basically,
indicator of what you want to do.
I think everybody has that, but at the start, it's sort of, if you go to an open gym, a commercial gym, you're sort of, you don't really know what to do. Like, I remember myself, like, when I was first going in, it was like, okay, this machine's free, I'll go and do it, and then I'll go and do this, and then you sort of machine hopped, and then you're like, oh, they're using dumbbells, how are they doing that? And you're watching, and you're kind of like, oh, it looks simple
And if you were
enough.
lucky and there was a bar and a bench for you, were like, I'm in.
You're like, that's
I'm going to get this.
I'm gonna bench press for 10 sets here.
Yeah. I suppose for me, it was probably somewhere in between. I never seen myself when I was 16, 17. I was like, oh, I want to be a personal trainer. It wasn't like an aspiration. But I always kind of had a persuasion towards sport and coaching, and done a lot of sports coaching and football and like multi-sports, and then worked in the community sector, which also exposed me to like physical activity with regards to like linking in my primary schools and that like exercise fitness side of things. But there never seemed like there was a career, like a full-time career that you could actually earn a living with, because of sport here. Professional sport's pretty limited in Northern Ireland. So soccer, football coaching would have been the dream back then, but it was hard. It was a hard enough sector to get into. But the teaching was something that I remember thinking about when I was at uni. It was like, oh, I can maybe do a bit of teaching or something. But again, it was never something I had a real passion for until I was probably about 28, roughly 27, 28. I kind of fell into it because I was similar to yourself. I was at the other end of it, where I went to a personal trainer who was a friend of mine, trained with him for 3-4 months, and the timing just lined up. He was kind of looking to expand, and I was in a position where I was trying to upskill and educate myself, and then we kind of just went, listen, we'll give it a go, and it worked out pretty well. I had a really good sound kind of foundation of training there, which I'd never had before, because prior to that I was just winging it. I was just training on my own, or maybe with a couple of mates. But it wasn't really until I'd done that kind of personal training with a friend where I had like actual coaching and I was showing how to do things properly with regards to barbell exercises and everything else. So that was like the first like real exposure to proper kind of personal training. But at the other end of it, just reading that, we kind of covered that first question. Looking back, what's the biggest kind of lesson or lessons or kind of an experience that you've had as a coach that's kind of shaped you into what you are today?
I'll go first, why not?
Okay.
You have 2 ears for a reason and one mouth.
2 years, 1 month, yeah.
Listening's better than speaking. You need to understand and listen to what the people in the room are telling you. if they're telling you something, you're doing the opposite, it's never going to work. It's just going to end up getting down a path, and then he's going to get that fork in the path. He's going to go separate directions, and it's never going to be sustainable.
I think that can be a bit of a challenge with personal trainers, maybe generally, where there is a bit of an ego in it, and that's a bit like it's about me, not the members or the
We'll
clients.
have to say words that they can't understand to make us feel better about ourselves.
No, swallow the science textbook to make yourself sound super educated, but the people you're trying to coach can't actually understand what you're talking about, so it's pointless.
That's it.
I think that's a really good thing. No, 2 years, one mouth. No, it is something that, no, and not just in this. It's obviously beneficial in a whole host of industries, but no, from our perspective, like you say, no, we need to make sure we're listening to what they're saying, not just us talking because we feel like it's about us, which it definitely isn't just about us. What about yourself, Reece?
100%. What Sean was saying there with listening that little bit more and knowing, you know, who you've got in front of you. Like if you're listening to the person, they're telling you they've had a rough weekend, they were up with the kids, we're up with the thing, and then you're telling them, put another 5 kilo on the bar. And you're like, you know, the person that's in front of you can't do that. They're tired, they're wrecked, they just don't want it. Like it's not that they don't want to do it, they maybe want to come in and smash the session out, but
physically it's...
If you can tell something's off, if you can listen to them and go, maybe today we're going to stay where we were, but I want us to focus on this next week. I want you to come in well slept. I want this lift next week to be a PB.
Yeah.
And communicating that with them, like look, sometimes you can't help it. I know I have 3 kids that don't sleep. You know, it's all well and good. Like
3 kids under
3 kids under 7. 2 of them are under 4, and whenever you really take it as it is, like kids just don't do what you want them to do. Like some people's kids, like I hear people like, oh yeah, they slept all night last night. I'm like, class.
Happy for you.
Class. Well, mine slept for 2 hours. 3 times.
I think it's something though that I suppose collectively as a team we can all relate to. Obviously we've all got kids, but it could be kids, it could be work, it could be caring for a family member, or it could be travel or something. There's always going to be something that could meet you where you have to be a bit like, I need to listen to what they're telling me, or not just...
People have stuff. Yeah. Like there's just stuff going on for everybody.
Outside life's more complicated than training.
Yeah, like we get them in here for 2-3 hours a week, and when they're in here, they don't have to think about anything else, but everything else is still happening.
Yeah.
So they're in here, we're dealing with their program, we're dealing with them as they've came in. It's not like we can be like having them at 100% every time they come in. That would be ideal. Everybody get the results they want. Everybody get that lift. Everybody get that last rep, but they don't. It's people have real lives. We know because we live them. We all have kids. We all have jobs. We're all out in life, and we see the different stressors that people have. And like, realistically, training's another stress. Yeah. Like, people are coming in, they're enjoying their training. That's our goal, is for them to enjoy themselves. But sometimes it's still just extra stress.
Yeah, so on top of what they're already trying to handle.
That's our job, as Sean said, to listen that little bit more and just to communicate that to them.
It is, and if we're not listening, then it's pointless. For me, there's been loads of things that have influenced me, from a coaching perspective, right from just playing sports and different, PE teachers in school and football coaches or Gaelic coaches and everything else, and there's wee snippets from all of those at different levels of sport, and how they're all brought together, and what we do here. There's loads of different experiences there, and I kind of touched on it there. I suppose specifically to what we do, probably the biggest one was that first experience of personal training and that impact that it can have if you do things correctly, like movement wise, and build a really kind of good foundation of safe quality movement. And I had about 4 or 5 months of training with Rory at Hench, which was where I then first worked as a personal trainer. But those 4 or 5 months of actually training with him as a client was probably one of the biggest influences with regards to my own training. But then from a coaching perspective, you were always learning from someone who had a couple of years already in front of you, because the knowledge there was a couple of years ahead of me. So you were able to absorb all that information and actually use it there and then. It was very practical based information, which that's something that I took a lot from in those earlier kind of years. How do you kind of touched on it here with some of the stuff you done early on, where you're, I suppose, that kind of transformation of yours with the weight loss side of it, but how do you continue to stay kind of on track and accountable with your own training now? And
a big part of that now is we train as a team. we aim for two sessions a week, 2 sessions a week where we get in and we're all there. We're having a laugh, yes, but we're pushing ourselves on certain lifts. We're working on that, and we keep each other going. You know, be like, not putting that 5 kilo on this time, not pushing that, like, you know, because we know that we can, or we know that it's there. We know when one of us is
somebody shying away for there.
we know when one of us is holding back on a certain lift, when one of us should be pushing harder on it, and we'll let each other know. And I think that helps massively. But outside of that, it's just a case of like, people come here for coaching, like. And if I'm not doing it, I feel like a sham, you know. Like if I'm not sort of looking after what I'm eating, if I'm not doing what I want to do, I feel like a fraud, you know. We're in here on top of people, telling them, right, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. But if we're not doing it, it's kind of coming from a bit of a hollow ground, and I don't agree with that. Like,
what about yourself?
I'm going to go a bit more wholesome. My family, train. I want to be more present, physically, mentally, stuff like, and it helps me do that. I don't want to be in my 30s and I'm struggling to play with my daughter, going up and down the stairs around the garden being busted. That's probably my main reason of being so consistent 5-6 days a week religiously.
I'm just trying to stay on top of it that way. No, I think what you're saying, no, professionally, obviously we're in this this industry, in this space, so we need to be able to stand by what we're telling people and advising people with their training and everything. We don't have to live like monks, and everything doesn't have to be perfect, but there needs to be a level of like, well, what I'm telling you I've either done before, or it's something that I actively still do. But there's also things that are more personal that motivate, and that's something our members bring with them as well. They have their own motivators because of family, or young kids, or loved ones that they look after, where they're like, I need to make sure that I'm looking after myself to continue to be there for them. So I think that's a big one.
We're examples for a lot of people. You know, we all have kids, we all have our clients, we all have the people that come in here each day, and if we start to gain 2-3 stone, like all of them will look at that and be like, oh, it must be okay. You know, people, like, there's phases and there's different things that we do, yes, but like, we have to stay accountable for those people because we're responsible for them as well.
Yeah, for me, it's probably a blend of a couple of those things. It is obviously, there's that personal motivator of like young family, wife, extended family. You want to continue to be there and be physically capable of living that life that you want with your family. But also the professional side of it is we can't be sitting here bullshitting ourselves with our own lifestyle and our training, and then trying to give advice to people who are coming to us for a service and help, if we're not kind of standing by what we can help them with. Alongside that, the biggest thing that I've noticed this year anyway, is that group training that we're doing. It's something I've probably missed. I've pretty much trained on my own probably the last 10, not quite the last couple of years. Me and Sean would have obviously trained as well a bit before you came on the team too, but I basically just trained solo. So it was always that like, I need to go and train, and it was just like, I need to keep training, I need to keep getting the sessions in. But having come from a team group based environment of sport, it's a bit crap. Like, I find it a bit crap training on my own.
So I'm the polar opposite of that. I end up, what we do in team trains, mess about and have jokes. Yeah. Where you may miss an exercise at the back end, I'm like, where I need to get it done. If I'm by myself, I can't talk to anyone, I can't distract anyone.
I think there is a bit of that. Like, there's a bit of that where sometimes you just need to come in and get your stuff done. In our industry, we've no choice. We can't be like, oh well, Sean and Reece aren't here today, I'll just not train. You have to get your training done, and that's just the reality of it. But I think there's a nice mix there, especially that training that we've really forced to kind of get in the diary. In 2025, personally, it's had a massive impact on my own training. The first couple of months of the year. If influence wise, we kind of touched on it there. Biggest influence in your career so far?
There's been lots over the last few years. I've done and experienced so many different ways of training, but one of the biggest things, and one of the biggest ones of mine, would be my own coach, which was Ben Heron for 4 or 5 years. Me and him worked together as a team, plus then he would have took on my training. He helped me last year with the endurance sports stuff I was doing. I was running mad amount of miles a week, cycling at the same time, all to raise money for Alzheimer's research. I raised just under $3,000. I raised like £2,750. Nice. And that was just a personal thing. It was a personal thing. Like my nanny passed about 9 years ago with Alzheimer's, and that was, I wanted to do something big
Yeah.
Like
that's
I
pretty
didn't.
big. That's
It wasn't
pretty
like
big.
I'm not. I was like,
Yeah.
my wife kept saying to me, "You could have just ran a marathon." And I'm
Aye,
like,
and had it done.
like man, you know. But in
Yeah.
prep, I ran a few marathons. I'd done a half
Yeah,
marathon in Hillsborough. I'd done Belfast Marathon, Carrick Triathlon, like a load of different ones on the build up to it. But the event itself ended with 79 miles of cycling and 18 miles of running. So I went
Sounds
from
absolutely horrendous.
Ballycastle. I cycled from Ballycastle the whole way down to Bangor, and then ran from Bangor to Ballywalter.
And that was all based on that training that you'd been doing for.
Yeah,
like,
so I started training this time last year. So it just started the start of January. I started running again, started getting back into it, and I knew it set the date for September 22nd. So it was like, right, this is when it's happening. I need to go. And it was like, I can't miss a session. I can't miss a run. I can't miss. And I really felt it if I did. In the sense it was like,
emotionally.
oh crap, this next one's going to be extra tough.
Yeah, it's gonna be worse.
And
Aye, but that thing is such a big challenge that missing one has such a big impact on that whole
yeah,
plan.
like the
'cause you've
whole
so many
thing of it,
things
like
to do,
and Ben had it laid out for me from the start. I was like, right, this is what we're going to do. These 3 months we focus on cycling. This 3 months we're going to focus on our running. We're going to build the distance up, get as many miles onto the bonnet, or onto the wheels as we can. And he's been there from my photo shoot right into my Spartan race, then into the endurance stuff. Me and him have been working together for years, and he knows me inside out. And he knows when I'm not doing something. He knows when I'm sort of like, he knows when I'm starting to bullshit myself, or when I'm starting to be like, oh, like I could do this a bit better. And I think that's important. It's important to like build that relationship with your coach, and they need to be like influential on that experience, like
and they need to have that freedom to do that as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Sometimes we don't want to hear what we need to hear, so it's
100%.
maybe a tricky one to take. What about yourself, Sean?
I never actually, like, in training, never really had a personal trainer. I'd done a lot of it myself, looking up like YouTube and stuff like that. But I'm got another wholesome episode. Kieran would have been the one back in the garage, even in his days in Antrim. I remember him bringing me down, trying to show me what to do. Wasn't really listening at the time, but it was like he was like foreshadowing that he was like, you need to start training. And then in the garage, he used to try and get me down all the time. And that was my first step into
Initial
fitness.
exposure of it, yeah.
And then you gave me my platform in terms of coaching and here, and gave me the tools to succeed at it. So
Nice.
don't get too big-headed.
No, I'm all right.
He's blushing.
Yeah, for me, I suppose again we kind of touched on it there, but just loads of different experiences of coaches in different sports, and I think that younger kind of me getting a lot of exposure to multiple sports and multiple different types of, Gaelic coaches, football coaches. Some were really like soft skill, supportive. Some were like, but like you get your shit together here, come on. So it was just different experiences. One thing was I went to a seminar. This is years and years ago in the previous place where I worked, and it was with Clockoff, the Russian weightlifter, who was doing this like tour of Europe and all this here, and he done one in Belfast, and we went to it, and it was a weightlifting seminar, so it was very much specifically for his sport. But the level of coaching and the way in which he coached was unbelievable. And I was very, very early on in my personal training career. But it was, yes, a lot of theory based, but it was literally get a bar and let's get going. We must have trained for about 3 hours. And it was just this, breaking everything down. But he was literally like, no, do this, move this. And he was in and touching everything else to make you feel it, which is something I kind of very much took on board as a trainer, because I just found it easier to kind of get my point across rather than trying to go into the like, not the language of it, where it was like, make things sound really, really complicated with big fancy words, but no one's really paying any attention to. It's like, get in, get hands on, and that was probably something I noticed really, really well.